I got to tell you, Chazz, it hurts that you're a friend, a dear friend. We're family friends, and I have no issue discussing this with you at all. And obviously, I talk about my father quite a bit. He's my dad. I loved him, and we had our issues too. But it hurts when people are trying to talk about a relationship that they really have no idea. I mean, unless you're a family member, a close friend, or someone that was really involved with us, you don't really know. And my dad and I had a lot of personal things between us. So let me just start from the beginning.
Hi, I'm Chazz Palminteri,
The Wise, and I'm Michael Franzese.
the wise guy. So, Michael, we've been doing this podcast now, I don't know, a while. And I got to tell you, so many people go, hey, what's Michael Franzese like? I go, oh, what was he like? He's a great guy. He was a mob guy. He was this, he was that. What's the real deal about him? And I said, well, go on the internet. And then after I said that, I went on the internet myself and I started reading about you. And there's so many conflicting things. And I go, you know what? The next time I do a show, I'm going to ask Michael some tough questions. I hope you don't mind, Michael. I got some tough questions I want to ask you. I think that our audience, I think they might want to hear it. And I know you might have some tough questions for me, but we'll start off with you first. And if you feel like you don't want to answer some, it's okay. And I respect that. But for the people who are listening to this right now, we did not rehearse this. Michael doesn't know. He might know some of the questions I might ask him, but he doesn't know all of them. But we're going to get it out right now because I read a lot of things on the internet, even about myself, such bullshit. But let's clear it up right now, Michael. My first question to you is, what was your real relationship? I'm talking about your real relationship between you and your dad.
I got to tell you, Chazz, it hurts that you're a friend, a dear friend. We're family friends, and I have no issue discussing this with you at all. And obviously, I talk about my father quite a bit. He's my dad. I loved him, and we had our issues too. But it hurts when people are trying to talk about a relationship that they really have no idea. I mean, unless you're a family member, a close friend, or someone that was really involved with us, you don't really know. And my dad and I had a lot of personal things between us. So let me just start from the beginning, and I'll breeze through it quick. I got into this life because my dad got a 50-year prison sentence and went to jail. I didn't aspire to be a mob guy. I was a pre-med student at Hofstra University. I was going to be a doctor. That's what my parents wanted from me, and that's what I wanted to a degree. Yeah, okay. I want to please them. I want to be a doctor. It's a good career. I had no aspiration whatsoever for being in the mob. None. But during the 60s, my dad got in so much trouble. He was indicted 3 times, went to trial 3 times in the state. He got acquitted, but he was gone most of the time, either in jail, out of the jail, whatever. I got 3 younger brothers and sisters. My mother's involved with my father. He gets indicted in the feds. They try him up in Albany. They're gone for 2 months. I'm watching my brothers and sisters. So I became kind of the caretaker at that point in time. And I love my dad. I went through, since birth, love my dad. He goes away in 1970, and he tells me in a visit that I'm framed, I'm innocent. I didn't do this, Michael. I believed him. He's my father. Joe Colombo takes me under his wing. I'm fighting for my father in the Italian-American Civil Rights League, and I'm losing interest in school because the guys are saying to me, if you don't help your old man out, he's going to die in prison. So I see my dad. We have a discussion in Leavenworth. He says to me, if you're going to help me and you're going to be on the street, I need you on the street the right way. That's when he proposed me for membership. And I'll be honest with you, Chazz. He said, I got to ask you one question, Mike. I said, what? He says, if you ever had to kill anybody, could you do it? And honestly, I thought about it. And I said, look, Dad, under the right circumstances, I can do it. That was it. It wasn't something I thought about all my life at all. This wasn't the direction of my life. So he proposes me for membership. That's how I got involved in the life. It wasn't that I aspired to be a mob guy. So that's it. But when I get into the life, I want to be the best possible mob guy I could be. That's just the way I do things. So for 15 years, Chazz, 15 years, I visit my father faithfully. I support my mother to a large degree and the kids. I paid for his legal fees. We had so many things. I went and tracked down the witnesses for his case, did everything I possibly could, right, during that time. Now, he's in and out. He came in and out a few times on parole. He always got violated every time. After 10 years, I got him out. I was the one that got him out the first time. Kept going back. I kept saying, Dad, you got to leave New York. Family's falling apart. My brother's got a terrible drug addict. My sister ended up dying in 1992 from an overdose. My younger sister dies. My mother and father growing apart. This is the kind of stuff we lived in, right? And meanwhile, I'm doing my thing in that life. My father was home maybe 10% of my time in that life. Maybe not even 10%, because he kept going back to jail. But I'm making progress in the life. So we had an incident, and this is horrible. I've never revealed this before, but my mother, Chazz, God rest her soul, she was a difficult woman. Anybody that knows her would tell you. She was the perfect match for my father. Very difficult. My dad had the first nickel he ever made. He would never spend it. My mom would spend every money that she was going to make for the next 20 years. They were total opposite, always arguing in the house about that, always tough time, right? But I took care of her. My mother started to get, I believe, and this is like, I don't know what you call this, like Shakespeare drama. My mother started to get a little bit envious of the success that I was having. I was married at the time, right? And I think she started to put some stuff in my father's head. Oh, you're not the big shot now. Michael is the big shot. This is true drama. So I started to see a little stuff in my dad, but he never let it really come between us. I don't want to make people think that he did, but something was changing a little bit. Boom. I get called on the carpet one night. They write an article about me. I was getting powerful enough to break away from the Colombos and make my own family. It was total BS. Long Island Press, I think, wrote the article. There was no truth to it. Long story short, I get called in one night, put on the carpet. And without going into the detail, because I mentioned this before, my father didn't defend me. It really hurt me. It was in a position where I could have been in serious trouble. He didn't defend me. He just kind of threw me under the bus. Now, he didn't know that I knew about it, but I was told that same night what he did. I kept it inside of me for 2 years. I never said a word to him or anybody else. When I decided to make the walk from that life, I always say this, if that didn't happen that night, I don't know if I would have walked away, because it kind of broke this bond that I had with my dad in a way. It was never the same from that point. Boom, we know the story. I walk away from the life. All this kind of stuff happened. We didn't speak for 10 years. Then he sends for me one day. I go to see him. Chazz, he wanted to meet me at a certain place. We were both on parole. I said, Dad, I'm not meeting you anywhere but your house. That's it. A little bit of me didn't trust him, because the feds had told me, you're a dead man. Your father went along with the contract. They came into the prison after I took the plea. When I met him that morning, 5:30 in the morning, he looked at me. Chazz, this was the thing. I walk in the front door. He's standing there like this with his arms folded. And he said to me, if you would have listened to me, you'd have been the boss of the Colombo family. I said, Dad, are you like in a Twilight Zone? You don't know what went on the past 10 years? I'm done with that. I serve a different master now. Because he said, all this Bible stuff is true. I said, yeah, it's true. And that's what kind of broke the ice. We started talking again. Now, what happens with him? Of course, he goes back to jail again. He comes out, he goes back again. The story of his life. Him and my mother, forget it. The relationship is done. My brother turns an informant, puts my father back in jail. During my dad's trial, I was there with him. I supported him during the trial. When my brother took the stand, I looked at my dad. I said, Dad, have this idiot lawyer put me on the stand. I will refute everything my brother is saying. Put me on the stand. The lawyer didn't want to put me on the stand. My dad gets convicted, right? I'm pretty good up there. I know what to do. Dad gets convicted.
What was the benefit of your brother? Why would he go on stand? What was the benefit for him to do that?
You know what I really believe? I really believe my brother contracted the HIV virus. His medication was very expensive. I believe that part of his real desire to go into the program was because they would pay for all his medication and cure him. And that's what happened eventually. Was it the whole reason? No. If you sit down and talk to my brother now, Chazz, and you hear the things that were in his head, I never agreed with him doing what he did, turning against my dad, but I understand what he went through because I lived through it with him. Our house was a mess. I was faithful to him during the trial. He comes home again at 100. Of course, he got 8 years. He goes back in. He gets convicted. Stupid stuff. Stupid stuff. He goes back in. He comes out at the age of 100. He's in a wheelchair. He's 100 years old. He's living with my sister. He needs 24-hour care. My sister in Brooklyn can't really handle him. She's a school teacher. She decides, look, we got to put him in this home in Queens. Okay, that's the best place for him. He's still on parole. Still on parole, right? Still watching him, like if he violated again, they'd send him back. The family decided that was the best place for him. So now I'm visiting him. People said I never visit him. I got 100 pictures with me and him, my sons and everything. I visited him so many times, right? I tried to get him to come out with me to live in my house. He didn't want to come. So now, people saying, oh, Michael, you didn't pay for your father to be in a better place. My father got violated 5 times. He was in the best place for him at that time until his parole was done. That was it. That was the family's decision. I wasn't only me. I have a sister and I have 2 sisters and a brother. They all decided that. That was it. So, look, I got to be honest with you. Our relationship changed a bit. Did my dad still talk to me? Sure he did. Did he still confide in me? Did he and I have personal conversations? Did he at the end of the day agree with what I did? Yes. Because he said, you preserved your life. You'd have been done in this life, Mike. He said, you made the right move. I don't like the way you did it at times, but you made the right move. That was our personal conversations. And so, then he passes away. Oh, you don't go to his funeral. I was told, don't make a scene there. It could get ugly. There's guys from New York. Who the heck wants to have a confrontation in a funeral home? So I said, okay, look, I'm not looking to put on a show. I'll go see my dad privately, and then I'll visit the cemetery, which is exactly what I did. Yeah. And, he wasn't, Chad, he wasn't sick for a long time. He died, I think, from COVID. Within 2 or 3 days, he was gone. It wasn't like he was ailing and I didn't go see him. He just passed like that. So,
So for the haters out there who write bullshit, you would say your relationship with your father was pretty good and changed at times.
Yes. Yes, it was good. I still loved him. I know he loved me, but it changed in a way. It couldn't be helped, and I had.
Now, was he in a nurse? Was he in a nursing home?
It was kind of like a nursing home, but I don't know if you can call it a nursing home. Look, he got a lot of visits. It was in Queens. People could come and see him. The times that I saw him there, he seemed content to be there. He didn't want to come out with me. Chazz, I have it on tape. They were trying to do a reality show on me and my family. I have it on tape. Oh, you know what? Then somebody else had said that the only time I went, and these are out and out lies. The only time I went to visit my father was when I brought a film crew with me and we were going to film him. First of all, I probably visited him 30 times. I don't know. But the one time I said to him, Dad, you got a great story. I said, I have a great guy that wants to come and talk to you and interview. You never gave an interview in your whole life. You're always saying you're framed. Nobody ever heard it from you. I said, you got to get on camera and say you're framed and help us with this. So he agrees to do it. I told Patrick Bet-David, Patrick, I only want you to do this. I don't even want him to sit down with me. Let him do it. Patrick flies out there with a film crew. He comes, we take my dad to lunch. My father changes his mind. Patrick got even a little upset with me. I said, hey, Patrick, what do you want from me? He's 101 years old. He changed his mind on the spot. I didn't know he was going to do that. This is what happened. Yeah, but that was one time that I did it. And he wanted to do it initially, and then he changed his mind. So I said, hey, I'm not going to force you, Dad. This is up to you. But, people want to talk, and you know how it is.
It would have been nice if he would have did it.
I wanted him to do it. He did something with Newsday. I don't think, I thought Patrick would have did a nice job with him because he was going to let him really tell his story,
Right.
Whatever. It wasn't meant to be.
You didn't go to the funeral because you were afraid for some repercussions with some guys from New York.
Yeah, and it would have got, look, if I would have went, I would have been prepared if I went. And I need that at my father's funeral. I mean, what am I trying to put on a show? So I went and visited him privately, and then I went to the cemetery. Now people will knock that.
Do you remember the last words your father said to you?
To me, I have a voicemail from that he left me. Mike, when are you going to come and see me? I miss you. That's what it was, his last words.
He just died of old age.
I think he died, he died in 2020, in February of 2020, which is when COVID just started. And we didn't really know what it was at that point, Chazz. He went into the hospital within 2 days, 3 days, he was gone. I think it was COVID.
How old was he when he died?
103.
He might have still been alive if there wasn't for
He
COVID.
might have been. Absolutely. Because he had pneumonia once or twice and he beat it. So, COVID is bad respiratory too. I think that's what.
We're talking about your dad. Is there anything else you want to talk about? You want to clear something up that's been bothering you or eating on your chest?
Nah, Chaz, it's personal stuff. Nobody knows really what went on with our family. Look, I have said this, and my family is a perfect example. I've called the mafia, Cosa Nostra, mob life, gang life. They're evil lifestyles, Chaz. And the reason I say that, I'm not calling the guys evil. I was one of them. I just happen to be very fortunate, very blessed to be where I am. But I don't know any family of any member of that life that isn't devastated in a way. So any lifestyle that does that to a family is a bad life. And my family, my mother, 33 years without a husband. Chaz, if you would have seen their relationship at the end of the last several years, it was ugly. When I was with them, I was a referee. I had to keep them apart. My mother hated him, and back and forth. It was terrible. I used to prepare people when I bring them over the house. I say, look, they're going to fight. Don't worry about it. It's normal in my house. They're going to fight. And they would always get into an argument every time. Ask anybody. Number one. My sister dies of an overdose of drugs at 27 years old. She was not right, highly affected. My brother's a drug addict, 25 years, ends up going in a program testifying against his own father. My other sister was never emotionally stable. She dies at 41 or 42 of cancer, smoked like a fiend, skinny like you couldn't believe it. You couldn't get through to her. So the whole family's destroyed. And every family is like that. So And one time I had a conversation with my dad. I said to him, Dad, it's a terrible life what we do to our families. And he got very upset with me. He said, I didn't do anything. I said, what do you mean you didn't do anything, Dad? I said, your whole family was destroyed. He says, it's not my fault. I said, what do you mean it's not your fault? I said, you got to take some responsibility. We were in jail. He said, no. He said, I was framed. I said, Dad, you weren't framed because you were a doctor, a lawyer, or a priest. You were framed because we were street guys and they were after us all the time. He would not take responsibility. He blamed mother didn't do things right and your brother's this and your dad, and it got me a little upset, honestly.
If you were offered, put yourself back there now at your age, and if you know what you know now, would you still become a made guy?
Would I become a made guy? Absolutely not. I'll tell you what happened. My son, my oldest boy in New York, was actually driving my father around for a while, and I found out about it. And I called my father. I said, Dad, stop. I'm telling you right now. I was so concerned. I got on a plane. I went to see my father. And I said, Dad, stop. I don't want this. And what I did, just to be sure, I took my son out to California. I said, first of all, if somebody's upset with me, they're going to take it out on my son if you're not around. I said, no. This is going to stop, and I don't want him involved in that life in any way, shape, or form. And I took him out with me. But no, I would have never done it again, Chazz. I mean, look, I think at the time I did it for the right reason. I did it to help my dad. I didn't do it because I wanted to be a tough guy. I did it to help my dad. So maybe because of that, I would have done it again. But I would discourage anybody from being involved in that life.
Well, I mean, that's a pretty good recommendation. I mean, obviously, it's funny when I talk to you and you talk about your father, I get a sense that you love him a great deal.
I loved him very much. I mean, look, he was a great father, Chazz. He was very supportive of me. He was a great dad. I have no complaints when he was there. But look, the last 50 years of his life, he was gone 40 years. He became like, my brother got into a horrible accident. We can't call my father. You have to go on without somebody. And back when my father first went to prison, you got 1 3-minute phone call a month and 1 visit a month. That was it. So he was like, he was out of touch. You know, my life has to go on, and I had to become the, you know, almost the man of the house because I was the oldest. My mother relied on me. My brothers and sisters, it was like I raised them. I tell you this, I revealed the first girl that I married, Maria, wonderful girl. Wonderful girl. The main reason I married her is because she got so close to my mother and she was so good to my brothers and sisters. I felt like an obligation to marry her because she was so supportive of me. She was always with my family, always. But, you know, look, I mean, I wish, you know, things didn't turn out in some ways the way they did. But look, that life is so destructive, Chazz. I don't care what anybody wants to tell you. And look, you don't blame anybody else but yourself. You know, there's a lot of guys, well, the life did this to me and the life did that. No, come on. We knew what we were doing when we got in there. We did it, and it's our fault. You got to take responsibility for the things that you did. You can't blame.
Now, is it true, Michael? Is it true? Because I read a lot of stuff, and people have approached me and said things, and I like to ask you a straight-up question. And I think you mentioned it to me once. Nobody ever went to jail when you were ratting on them. Is that correct?
Chazz, look, I've said this 1,000 times, and I've challenged people to bring something different, and they can't because it doesn't exist. Look, I did a whole video on this recently. Do you know who John Gleason is?
I know that name.
Okay, John Gleason was the federal prosecutor who put Gotti in prison. He just wrote a book about Gotti in the last year. John Gleason said that Michael Franzese, in the book, in writing, that he went through everything that I ever talked to the government about, and there was nothing in there that was of value. As a matter of fact, he said, he took over the case. He said, Michael Franzese took my predecessors to the cleaners because I had one commitment. I had two things I wanted to do. Number one, I wanted to make the government understand I was really out of the life. And number two, I would never put anybody in prison. It wasn't who I was. I wasn't turning on anybody. I wasn't mad at anybody, nothing. What I did was move the government around and try to make them see that I was a good guy without hurting anybody. I never gave them information. And that's why I said it emphatically. And I challenge anybody to bring anything forward that says that anything I ever said would put anybody in prison. It never happened. Never got him indicted, never put him in prison. Nobody can bring any information. It doesn't exist. Even the FBI and the prosecutors said the same thing. And when they threw me back in jail, because they tried to get me to come in and testify in a case against John Riggi, they flew me in when I was on parole, brought me to Newark and said, you're going on the stand. John and I were very close, and I refused. They sent me back home. Within weeks, I'm violated on my parole, and they kept me in lockdown for almost 3 years. And they told me straight out, this is the government's revenge on you. You're staying in a hole. So, and I wound up doing almost 8 years in prison. So yes, I talked to the government. Yes, I tried to make amends, but never gave them anything that put anybody in prison ever. And for me, that's the bottom line.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, and I'm glad we had a chance to clear all this up, Michael. Really, I mean, I know we do reviews on books and things, but you know, after listening to people, sometimes I read this such, and I love people sometimes. People who don't even know you write about you like they know you, who weren't even born at that time, who know you, and people who write some shit about me too. So the internet is a great thing, but it's also kind of poison. It's kind of like a refrigerator. You got to open up the refrigerator and take what you like out of it and leave the rest, I think.
No, I agree. But listen, when you put yourself out there, you got to expect there's going to be people that like you and people that don't like you. You know, what I don't like, Chazz, is when people make things up.
Yeah.
And they try to become experts or make people believe that they know what they're talking about. And they talk and they just talk and they don't bring any facts, and they lie and they make things up. And that happens a lot. It happens a lot.
Yeah, sometimes they just want to do that for followers, for excitement, to get followers. But usually it all comes out in the wash. People find out about these phonies.
No, it will. It comes out. And look, I always said this. When I first got on YouTube, I said, listen, I will never try to make my name or establish myself by bad-mouthing other people. I won't do it. And I don't think that that's productive, and I don't think it shows integrity. But other people enjoy doing that. That's what they do. They want to cut.
Well, they have nothing else. They have nothing else. Well, we hope that you guys, this was a very insightful show, kind of different where we went. We got a little personal with Michael. And then maybe next time I could tell you about my life involved with the life. Again, I wasn't in the life, but on the fringe of it, knowing a few people that I know. We hope you enjoyed the show. This is Chazz Palminteri,
The Wise, and I'm Michael Franzese.
the wise guy. And don't forget to go to our website. Don't forget to go to Michael's website or chazzpalminteri.net. You can get my merchandise. Now You Can't Leave. And one of the great ones, Michael's merchandise and ours, The Wise and The Wiseguy. We got great stuff for Christmas, New Year's. Check it out. And I guess we'll see them next week, right, Michael?
We will. And we're getting closer to Christmas. So listen, enjoy the shopping and the festive time of the year. And it's a good time for family and friends. And, just enjoy yourself and stay safe. Stay safe.
Stay safe. God bless.
All right. Take care.